On this episode of the Innovative Schools podcast, we're sitting down with John Almarode, and we're going to talk about struggle, the right amount of it, and how it can help your students grow. Come on, let's learn together. Hey educators, welcome to this episode of the Innovative Schools Summit. Will's here with me, Jordan.
I am here at the Innovative Schools podcast, not Summit.
Oh my gosh, I did it. I knew it. We're just going to keep going. I knew eventually it would happen, but we are also at the summit.
We are in Las Vegas, yes.
Yes, we're in Las Vegas, still in Las Vegas, because the last episode with Gary Brooks,
Yes.
we did in Vegas, still here. But we're just having a great, grand time. Before we introduce our guest here, who we have with us, who we've had before, so think about that. Maybe you can guess who it might be. I want to talk to you a little bit about struggle.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. But like when you think of struggle and maybe some of the more challenging things in your life or something that you've struggled with, what was did you appreciate the struggle? Did you hate it? Do you think it helped you? Do you think it made it worse? There's like 8 questions here.
Yeah, I think, which is probably for most people, is when I was younger, I hated it. I hated struggle. I just, why couldn't it just always be my turn on the slide? Or I want to be able to play the game first. Like, why do I have to wait? Or be forced to do these hard things? But now that I'm older, the second I get to do something a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging, I'm thinking I'm going to be so grateful for this later. Like I get to flex the muscle of my brain in work or whatever I'm doing. So I think I'm a lot more grateful now. Though sometimes I still think, man, why is everything still so hard sometimes, But for sure, younger, maybe even into high school, I was still very much just like, why are we putting letters into math? Why do we need to struggle through that? So,
Math is just numbers.
Yeah, it should be,
When I'm thinking about struggle, I think of actually there's a, State Parkers, I don't know, not Grand, Red Canyon something is over here. And when we're here in Vegas, we like to go and hike. And
like the Red Rocks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Sorry. I just remember the views, not the names. But I think about the struggles of like, we take a good number of people there and we try and warn them a little bit like, hey, the trail that we do, like...
You mean like you tried to warn me the last year?
Yeah, it's a little strenuous. It's a little hard, but once you get to the top and you can look back over Vegas, and you've accomplished getting up there, like that struggle to get there is worth it. And that's what I think about with like the struggle. That kind of thing. And so we're talking all about the struggle stuff because we have John Almarode over here who's just been sitting. I haven't looked at him this whole time. I don't know if he's been smiling or like, Jordan, this is not struggle at all. I don't know. But we got John Almarode, dude. I'm sorry, Dr. John Almarode. You worked hard for that, doctor.
Dude will work.
Dude will Dr. Dude. Yeah. Anyway, what's going on, man?
How are you? It's great to be in Vegas. I can't imagine hiking in 110-degree weather.
It is difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
It's tricky and difficult.
But Vegas, nonetheless, is I cannot think of a better place to spend the hottest time of year for this part of the country than in Las Vegas. It's great to be here. I'm glad to be sitting here and talking about struggle.
I'm really thankful that we get to do this in person this time because you were on the podcast in season one. Season one, remote, virtually, which was great. Love that. Go back and check that one out. But I love that we can be here together because I think just being in person is awesome. But so Will was talking to you before about what we can talk about. Yeah. What's the new thing we can kind of talk to educators about? What might they want to learn about? And we've been talking about struggle, and that's something that you're into now? I don't know how to say this. What are you?
I guess that's a one way to say it.
You're doing research on it.
the struggle's real.
Yes, it is. Help me.
My research team, the folks that I work with on a regular basis, we have taken up the struggle of understanding what that is. Part of it was out of the narrative that has surfaced, not within the last 5 years, not within the last 10. It's probably been around for a while. I don't want to put a year on it, but there's this narrative that you only are successful, you only grow, you only get better, you only learn if you're struggling. And so we created this narrative that says, look, if you don't experience misery and heartbreak and sweat and pain, then it's really not worth it. And that didn't really sit well with me, especially as a classroom teacher. So you're telling me that in my Algebra 1 class, the only way I'm going to make those students successful, the only way they're going to be successful is if they go through math boot camp. Mm-hmm. And so I was concerned about that narrative. And so I started digging around in the research literature and realized that the emperor has no clothes. And so I got my colleagues together and I said, hey, I think we have something happening here, because when you talk to teachers, it turns out they were having trouble finding the right level of challenge for their students. And they were being bombarded with this narrative of, you've got to make it difficult, you got to make it difficult. And so they were seeing disengagement, they were seeing frustrated learners, they were frustrated, they began to disengage. And so we decided to tackle it. And our first step was to go talk to teachers and students and get to the bottom of this idea of struggle, and then pull in the neuroscientists, the cognitive scientists, the educational psychologists, and say, what actually happens in the human brain? What does cognitive science say about our learning architecture? What studies are out there that show the impact of struggle, doing hard things? And off we go. And we're in the midst of the study as we speak.
That's great. So what's a good beginning point for kind of, I guess, understanding struggle and that? Like, I don't know, just what's a good, like, where are we going to start? I'll let you pick.
Your hike. Let's go with your hike.
Okay.
So we're analyzing data now, and we're going to move into the second phase of this study, and it'll be something that goes on for a while, but let's go with your hike.
Okay.
You called it, I can't remember the word, tricky and difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult. I'm going to be honest. It's from Bluey, and that's the age of my kids.
I got it.
And
Say no more.
When I said it, I was like, oh, no one else is going to get this. This is a Jordan family inside thing. So
yeah, no one else watches Bluey in the entire
other
world.
people do watch it, but I wasn't sure if anyone would get it. So Trivicult's from Bluey. Go look up the episode. It's great. Anyway,
I love it.
Tricky and difficult.
Tricky and difficult. My children are 14 and 12, and Sesame Street was still the thing. And so we have tap dancing with Elmo.
Got it.
Or doing the pigeon with Bert. So
Yep.
it just depends
Yep.
on, I get it. I would argue that that's not exactly struggle.
Okay.
Here's what we found. When we talk to folks about struggle, we're going to come back to your hike. When you talk to individuals about hard things, let me ask you some questions about your hike. Did you know how to accomplish the hike?
Yes. I guess, I knew the trail.
Yep.
I had done it before.
You had the tools.
I had the tools.
You had the skills. It was hard, but you had everything you needed to complete it.
Sure.
It turns out when you talk to individuals about hard things, there's a difference in individuals that are like, wow, that was really hard. I had to put in a lot of effort, a lot of time. That versus, I don't have any idea what to do next. And so when we talk to teachers and we talk to students, and when we even talk to folks outside education, we were able to sort it into two piles. It turns out there's a difference between hard and difficult and something that's actually a struggle. And so a struggle, in our research, what we're finding is when an individual is moving along, they're doing something, completing an assignment, reading a passage, completing a task, and all of a sudden their skills, their understanding, and their knowledge hits a barrier. What they did in the past, what they were used to doing, and what they had in their toolkit no longer worked at this moment.
So it's more, right, okay. So it's more like, hey, I cannot go any further with what I currently know or have access to.
Exactly.
Got it.
And that's difficult to sort out because when things get hard, we tend to slap struggle on it.
Got it.
But really what's happening there is you're just in a challenging situation. You knew how to get out of that hike. You knew how to complete. You had all the skills you needed. It just was challenging.
Sure.
That, in our findings, is not struggle.
Okay.
That's just hard. And so if you choose not to do it, it's a motivational issue, it's an engagement issue, it's a persistence issue, but it's not struggle. Struggle is when I can't do this with my current skill set.
Can't go any further.
Correct.
So maybe a little bit more like, Will, you said something about like, there's now letters in my math.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. You
Right.
didn't have the skills
at
to
that
know
point.
how to move forward.
Absolutely. And so all of this is coming from the interviews and the classroom observations and our work in schools and classrooms across the country. So this is not just philosophy, according to John. This is what we're seeing. Where it really started to show up was when we would have conversations with athletes. And the athletes would talk about a workout. Man, that workout was hard. That workout kicked my butt. That workout, right? And we would say, wait a second. Did you struggle through it? No, I got through it, but it was just hard. And that's when we started to say, wait a second, you're differentiating these two situations. So then when you go in and talk to learners, when a learner is engaged in, say, solving a math problem, there's a difference in, wow, this is a difficult calculus problem. This is a difficult word problem. I just need to sit down and get it done. I've got to think a little harder. I have to work a little longer. I have to pull and make connections I'm not used to making, but I have the toolkit. Versus a child who sits down and says, wait, I don't even have the background knowledge to make sense of this poem or make sense of this passage. I can't go any further with my current skill set, content, knowledge, and understanding. And so that's the moment of struggle, that exact moment in time when what you're used to doing, the strategies you've used in the past, the interventions or approaches you've pulled from no longer work right now, and you've got to do something different. That point in time, that moment in your cognitive processing, that's struggle.
Okay. So that's the difference. So that's good to know. I'm glad. Because I think that changes a lot of my perception of like the difficult and struggle, that like kind of difference. Because you're right, now that you say all that, I think about the hike and I think, oh, that was difficult, but I did know everything to do there. Yeah. But then translating that into schoolwork or even work here, there's things that, oh, that was difficult, but I knew how to get there. But sometimes I hit those walls and I don't know what to do next. And that's where struggle comes in. So then, now that we've kind of defined what struggle is, great starting point. It's like you're an educator or something. We've defined it. How does well, I guess in that moment, a teacher hopefully would recognize that moment in that student. I guess we can make an assumption that the teacher recognizes that. How does that struggle moment end up helping students, or how does a teacher start to turn that into something that is beneficial to learning?
So a couple of things to unpack there before we answer that question. Is your question, and I love this banter. So we're making the assumption at this moment that you have to have struggled to learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an underline, and am I right? There's an undertone there that kind of makes this. Am I right on that?
Yeah,
with the way
I guess
you
I
phrased
am
that
kind of
question?
assuming that there has to be some amount of challenge. I mean, I guess we hear that a lot. We hear that a lot, like, and maybe I'm relating a lot of things to like working out or something. Like you're not building muscle if you don't feel the pain, or if you're not struggling a little bit, right? Like I feel that's a fairly cultural thing. Do you feel that way? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
That same way?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I guess kind of keeping in that same realm, like I know if I'm at the gym and personal thing for me, if I go work out and I'm not sweating if I'm not starting to sweat even a little bit in, I'm like, I need to be increasing the weight. I need to be running longer. I need to be whatever's going on. Like
you feel like you haven't done enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Even if my arm already hurts, I'll be like, well, I'm not really sweating. Sometimes.
So, but in an academic sense, I think to take that is, I feel like I don't necessarily feel that I'm learning if I don't, I guess I put it in more like I don't have the questions, or I don't feel that challenge of like, I don't actually know this answer, or that kind of thing. So
again, we're switching out challenge and struggle, right? So again,
we're working on it.
Challenging in the weight room, in an athletic event, in a game, versus struggle. So I want to shelf it because we're going to come back to that. Now, I do want to answer your question, but I want to come back to this underlying assumption that actually was one of the triggers behind us diving into this research. But to answer your question, when we see this happen in our classroom, how does a teacher leverage it? Your first point was right on the money. The teacher, we have to recognize it, which means as a classroom teacher, and I do this with my students at James Madison University, I have to make sure that I'm generating evidence and that I'm making their thinking and learning visible so I can see it. I can see that it's a struggle or I can see that it's a challenge. So as a teacher, the first question is, does my classroom operate in a way that makes thinking and learning visible so that I can recognize that something's up? Maybe not struggle, but something's up.
Visible in the sense of being able, that helps you see where the students are.
You got it.
That's what you mean by
so the tasks require writing or talking or engaging with it. It can't be a silent classroom.
Right.
Once I recognize it, now I have to make that decision in the moment. Researchers call it expert noticing. So I have to expertly notice something's going on over there with little Leroy, where I live. We name our children Leroy.
Yes. But I think Leroy was in the first podcast episode too.
I think he was. All the time. Leroy and Lulabelle have tough lives, right? So once I recognize it, I have to then decide, is this individual challenged and just needs more time? Are they experiencing challenge and they're trying to sort out where to go next? Or are they truly struggling and now they have to make a decision about where to go next? And so in child development, this research was done on infants. What I'm about to say was done on infants. Then I've got to decide whether to take over, be a guide on the side, or leave them be. And there's been a large amount of research in child development on takeover behaviors. When young babies experience struggle or challenge, if we rush in and take over, we send a very bad message. As a classroom teacher, I have to make that same decision whether they're 6, 16, or 26 in my world. I have to recognize it and then respond. And my response is really going to matter a lot. Do I provide support and scaffolds? Do I provide feedback? Or do I need to provide some instruction to help them maneuver? And by the way, my decisions may not all be around cognitive variables. It could be affective. So the learner may be challenging or be challenged by something, but emotionally they're struggling, so they melt down. That's a different kind of support. So now I need to help you emotionally manage what happens. So the decisions a teacher has to make in these moments, it's just fascinating to watch and to talk to teachers about because there's a lot happening. And expert teachers know how to read that room, quickly make that decision, and support those learners. And by the way, we get it wrong sometimes. We take over when we should have stood back. We stand back, and the next thing you know, Leroy has thrown his Chromebook, is hanging from the rafters, and that is not a gender-unique reaction. It's just Leroy is the example. And so that's what happens. The teacher has to leverage it by making the decision about what to do next. And be intentional about those decisions.
Okay. You said something really interesting there that I hadn't thought about before, is separating the academic struggle from the emotional struggle. And that really hit me specifically because my daughter, I feel like, has all the tools she needs for academically, but she struggles on the emotional side. And I think I'm getting the definitions down right now. Like sometimes I feel like, that kind of thing. So that's really interesting. I didn't think about that side of the struggle. So that's something else that you guys are kind of like looking at and seeing in all your research and stuff that you're doing.
Absolutely. If you take and not to geek it up too much, because we are in Vegas, but if
can you talk about it in betting odds? No,
So statistically, if you look at all the different domains of learning, cognitive, affective, social, psychomotor, struggle occurs in all of them. So you can even have, say, in a physical education classroom, a learner that understands the cognitive cues for overhand throwing. The struggle occurs in the physical execution of those. You can have a learner that can execute the physical movements but cannot apply them to a game situation. And so in the gymnasium, in physical education, it really sorts itself out. In mathematics, and certainly reading, you see the emotional side show up. They get frustrated, they melt down. where cognitively they were good to go, emotionally it was out of whack. Now, I don't want to give the impression that those systems are separate. The research on that is fascinating. Mary Helen Imedina Yang out of USC is one of the leading neuroscientists that studies how it's all embedded into what makes us a human. So I don't mean to silo the different domains, but understand you can be overly developed in one and maybe struggle in another. My son Jackson, cognitively, is the smartest one in the house. But sometimes when he was little, he used to say, "Daddy, I feel something, I just don't know my words." Very different type of struggle than I don't know what 4 times 3 is.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, cool. I'm just thinking about all the things that you're saying, and I was like, I had like 17 questions, and then they all left immediately. But this is really it. I love, we have that phrase at the beginning of every episode where we say, "Come on, let's learn together." And I feel I'm truly like I think I love that I talked about the hike. And that was used because I feel that I kind of struggled there. I don't know. We said we were going to talk about struggle, but I didn't really know what we were talking about, I guess, is the way to put that. And so I feel like I've been able to struggle a little bit. Not in a bad way.
Yeah, right.
I'm not looking at it as a bad way, but as I've learned these different things, because it makes a lot of sense of, challenging, difficult is separate from that struggling. So what are, I guess, tools or ways, things, how does a teacher, you talked about it maybe a little bit, but let's go in a little bit deeper of differentiate when they're looking at Leroy to tell, they're just challenged versus they're really struggling. And I guess an additional question to that is kind of going back, I asked this a little bit, but is the moment of struggle, like as soon as they are able to define and say that struggle, jump in there? Or is there, what tactics or things should be kind of used to get into that? And what do we do after we see that moment of struggle? I feel like we've been able to kind of come back to that point now.
That's a great question. So as we continue to analyze the data we have, I may have a better answer for you in 6 months or 9 months.
Okay, so part 2 in 1 year.
Part 2 in 1 year. So one of the things that we have to sort through is, okay, at the moment of struggle, what we do next, and what the learner does next, or any individual does next, determines whether that becomes productive or unproductive. Now, those are buzzwords. Those are jargony words. Oh, productive struggle, productive struggle. My goodness. Pause for a minute. That's a mess, because what I say when I say productive struggle means something because we've turned it into this jargon catchphrase. We even have phrases productive and unproductive failure. Now, I'm not saying that those aren't real concepts, but we throw them around so quickly and so easily now that we've kind of lost what's happening. So when you hit that moment of struggle, what you do next determines whether it's productive or unproductive. Let me give you an example. And I don't mean to make this negative, but this is one of the best examples I can think of. Any cheating scandal that exists, whether it was the college admissions cheating scandal that involved the Hollywood folks, whether it was the testing scandal that occurred in Atlanta years back, or even
Deflategate.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Deflategate. And given the current context we're in now, there may have been another controversial cheating moment, although it didn't play itself out in the World Cup game the way it could have. Why do we choose to cheat? If you look at individuals that engage in cheating scandals, it's because they've encountered a struggle and they've chosen to unproductively respond to it. I cannot do well in this class on my own. The tools, the skills, the strategies, they do not work here. And so what happens then, they make a decision to unproductively get around that struggle. They cheat. They look off their neighbor's paper. They chat GPT it. And so what they do is they shift the lift. They hand the cognitive work off and they cheat. Versus productive strugglers who decide, wait, I'm going to seek help. I'm going to research more. I'm going to go and ask the tutor. I'm going to meet with, so they choose to do things that productively close the gap, that keep them cognitively, emotionally, and behaviorally engaged in a way that moves their learning forward versus cognitive abandonment, cognitive, I mean, you can come up with all kinds of cool catchphrases where they just shift the lift away from them. And so at the moment of struggle as a classroom teacher, what I'm looking for is, okay, is it challenging or is it truly a struggle? And then how do I make sure that I don't remove the burden from the student completely, but also don't leave them feeling so desperate that they choose to do it on their own. So that's where scaffolding, feedback, prompts and cues, collaborative learning, all of those coaching, instructional coaching, cognitive, all the techniques that we have in our toolkit to support that learner. It could be that they go into some skill building tasks. They go into but that's where the magic happens. What happens after the struggle? That's the moment of success or failure. And it really plays itself out when we decide to either take over or leave them to their own defenses, and then we can't be shocked at the findings or what they choose to do.
Right. And so what I kind of took from that was, it sounds like some of it is on the student themselves on which path they choose. Like the educator probably has a certain amount of influence, or it can kind of potentially stop the use of unproductive struggle or choices or things like that. But it's kind of the individual to choose how they get out of that struggle, and that can be a whole nother conversation, I suppose. Of
because we can teach that. In fact, that's the motto that I use when I talk about it, and when I work with my colleagues, and then with classroom teachers and even students. Stop worrying about whether you've created productive struggle or not. Stop. All you can do is provide the right level of challenge for learners, and when they struggle, are you building better strugglers? In other words, are we spending time teaching students how they learn, strategies for learning? Are we teaching students metacognitive skills? Are we teaching students social emotional regulation skills? In other words, our focus should be not avoiding struggle. Our focus should not be on designing for productive struggle. That phrase drives me bonkers. Instead, create the right level of challenge, and when they struggle, are we building better strugglers so that we're building the capacity of the learner to then self-regulate and self-drive their learning when they get into struggle in the future? Because we want them to know what to do when they don't know what to do, and we're no longer their teachers.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're doing that alongside the content. Even at the university and in my child development classes, I tell them, you will likely encounter something in here that is going to throw you for a loop. I'm also going to talk you through how you might get out of that struggle. So even with 20-year-olds, we're working on, okay, so what do you do when you're in the middle of a case study or you're working with a child in the child development lab and something goes astray? Do you have this, let's build those skills as well as the learning in the class so they run parallel.
Got it. You kind of answered my next question, but just to bring some clarity to it, should teachers be lesson planning to produce a moment of struggle?
No. It's so funny to me, and I don't mean to be nasty and hateful about it, but what we've done is we've put an extra burden on teachers. And it's an unnecessary burden, and it's not supported by research that exists now. Now, in 10 years from now, will there be studies that contradict what I'm going to say? Maybe. But to tell a teacher, you need to plan for productive struggle. No, you need to plan for challenging, rigorous tasks that engage learners in high difficult, high complex situations. Whether they struggle or not, you wait and see. To purposefully create struggle is just crazy to me. Welcome to Algebra 1. We're going to make warriors out of you. That's ridiculous. Welcome. This is
what
math.
It felt like.
We're gonna, and to be a little snarky about it, we even brag about it. We go down the hallway and say, I'm a rigorous teacher. I had 3 A's last semester, 6 B's, and the rest were C's because if you have an entire year with a room full of students and you only had 2 A's, you're a bad teacher. right? If I have a whole year with a room full of kids, I'm going to get more than 2 across the finish line. Right? So we're bragging about, it's just ridiculous. It's this cultural narrative, right? And it started with children. The reason they're successful is they had a difficult, challenging, ridiculous childhoods. Should not be a rite of passage. And that's a little philosophical. I'll come back to. But what I'm saying is, no, we should not plan for struggle. Instead, we should plan for the right level of challenge. Make it challenging enough to where they're having to put in effort, put in time, and cognitively engage in the work, but not purposefully creating these barriers, these moments of pure struggle. They're going to happen on their own if we're making it rigorous and as we find that right level of challenge. Because you're going to constantly be adjusting. Well, I think you're ready for this. Oh, I gave it to you and then let me dial it back. Oh, now let me ramp it up. Oh, let me make an adjustment here. So we're constantly adjusting the rigor, the difficulty and complexity. But there doesn't seem to be any evidence to support this mentality of we have to design for struggle. It just isn't in the literature. We cannot find it.
I think about it. Let me see if I can get this analogy kind of right, the way that my brain is working right now visually, of thinking of like lifting weights. If there's too much weight, that's the struggle. I cannot lift that weight, and it's not helping me build any strength.
Correct.
If
you just throw your back out.
If there's not enough weight, sure, I can move it all day long, but there's not the challenge and there's no building of the muscle.
That's right.
It's finding the right weight to be, I am getting that sweat, I'm feeling that burn, but I can complete the task.
100%. So if I'm reading Hamlet, I don't want to avoid reading Hamlet or give it to them in a cartoon form where they don't have to engage in the particular syntax and grammar of Shakespeare. But I also don't want to hand them Hamlet and say, you know what? If you try harder and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you'll do it too. We're going to get through it. No. Instead, how do I scaffold and support them based on what that learner's ready for? So lots of things. I can reduce the amount that they're going to read. I can provide summaries. I can read it with them, have them work with partners. I can use metaphors and analogies. For example, I use this joke all the time. The Lion King is nothing but Disney's version of Hamlet.
Yeah.
So there are lots of ways that I can still have learners engage in Shakespeare, but manageable. The way to think about it is John Hattie often says this. It's called the Goldilocks effect. It's the right level of challenge. It has an effect size of about 0.60, which is a really high effect size in education. It's called the right level of challenge, the Goldilocks effect. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right. We should be planning for just right.
Yeah.
We shouldn't purposefully go in and say, I'm going to ramp up the temperature of the porridge so high it burns the inside of your mouth, and then you're going to remember it, and it's going to make you a gritty person. No, the right level of challenge. That's what our target should be. Now, I'm not saying that's easy. Let me be very clear to those listening and those watching. I'm not saying this is easy. This is where formative assessment, checks for understanding, knowing your students, looking at student evidence from the previous. Finding that right level of challenge is hard, which is why when struggle happens, it's not a bad thing. How we respond to it determines whether it's productive or unproductive.
Right, because you have 25, 30 kids in a classroom, and their Goldilocks zones can be all over the place.
That's right.
And so if you plan for that, you may have hit, I don't know, if there's 20 kids in the class, 15 of them or 10 of them, maybe 5 of them, right? I don't know. I don't know. But then those handful that it ends up being out of their zone towards the struggle, that's what need to know how to handle that.
Right.
To get them into the productive side.
That's exactly right. And it's not easy. There are days with my students at JMU where, in fact, it happened this past semester and I had to fess up. I don't mean that I struggled with confessing. I knew it.
Well, you knew how to do it, and you had the tools to confess.
I did. So it was a challenge. But I gave them a task that I thought was good. And then once it started coming in and once they started to ask questions, I realized, whoa, I think I missed the mark, because there was this pattern of student responses. There was this pattern of student reactions that told me they had moved outside of their zone. And then I noticed a couple of them were going to sources outside of the set of sources that I gave them. And that told me, oh, they're moving into desperate mode. They're reaching for these things over here. So stop, I've missed it. So they come into class and I said, I need you to stop for a second. I said, I gave you something and I misjudged your comfort zone. And it's my mistake. I'm not removing the assignment. I'm not changing it, but I'm going to scaffold it differently in class now and have you go back after it. So I didn't remove it, but what I did was I addressed the struggle and started to build the tools for what they were going to do next. So I didn't take over, but I did hit the brakes and say, stop.
Yeah.
This is on me. I misread the situation. I did not mean for this to come out this way. Let's fix it. The same thing can happen if I hand a kindergartner a task and realize, wait, they're struggling with cardinality, one-to-one correspondence, right? I'm not saying remove the task, keep the task, provide the support, and teach the skills along the way.
Yeah. You struggling with this? You got it?
No, I actually really love that we've talked about this, because I remember just emailing you, John, like about what we should talk about, what's new in your mind. And the second I read the word struggle, I was like, I want to talk about this and I want to be on this episode. I feel like personally for me, I think the definitions that you've given in the beginning of the episode I've been able to go through myself in my own life and kind of apply, okay, what was actually just a challenge and what is actually me struggling. And I think that this is going to continue to help me as I'm facing things now that I'm going through in my life, that I'm able to really assess the situation and stop myself and go, okay, am I really struggling with this, or do I really have the tools? And I think that's maybe a question I do actually have is, I'm not sure if you're, at what point your research is in, but do you think, I guess I'm trying to figure out how I'm asking this, but have you run into people who are saying that, no, this is a struggle because they just don't know that they already have the tools?
Yeah, kind of. I was thinking about that as you're talking about that. I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about kind of the other way of someone labeling something a struggle that's really just a challenge. It's
really just a challenge for them. Is that something you've run into, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes. Yes, too, we've run into this. What is fascinating with learners in particular, teachers are a fascinating case. We're just different as human beings. I mean, we choose to spend our entire life in school. So I'll come back to the teacher response. From the student response. So a student experiences some challenge, whether it's in social studies and they're analyzing a historical document, whether it's in literacy and they're working through elements of poetry, whatever the context is. It could even be, say, in art, and they're doing still life drawings and they're working on shading. And they're like, I can't do this. I don't understand it, right? But as a teacher, I have evidence that they do. What's happening is this transfer issue. They're not able yet to grab from what's over here. And for those of you that are listening and not watching, I reach up with my one hand and grab it and connect it to the other hand. They can't make it. They're like, oh, so that's where this applies. So then that's where we use a different technique as teachers, cues and prompts, where we cue them or prompt them to go look in their interactive notebooks, or we ask them a question that has them recall something that they didn't previously recall. So in that case, it's the teacher's response that's going to matter. We may have to stop and model and say, all right, pause. I notice all of you are struggling at this moment. Actually, you've just run into a challenge. I'm going to help you get around it. And so we model the thought process. Or we give them a worked example, or we show them an exemplar that shows them that they get it and that they have that tool or that they possess those skills. And so, again, it's the teacher response and what the student does that determines its productivity or its lack of productivity. So to answer your question, when we encounter that and when we've seen that happen, if the teacher just says, oh, well, here, do it this way and does it for them, that's a takeover behavior.
Yeah.
Versus, actually, you do know this. Let me prompt you. Let me cue you. Let me ask you questions. Let me model something. Let me show you an example and see if you can connect the dots.
I feel like that's easier for, at least for someone being in that situation. I feel like it's easiest for, in my experience, athletes to do that. Because my brain thinks of, okay, like I play a lot of volleyball, and my thought is, okay, I've gotten this ball, like super out of system. So, it's really not where we want it to be. And I need to hit it as hard as I can and make it go a certain distance. I've done it before. So I know I can just try to go for it, even if I'm not totally there for it or not. I think it's easier when at least in my experience, it's easier to run into those situations and pull it from the past when it's a physical thing. Mm-hmm. But not nearly as much when it's a mental, when it's something that I've had to work through when it's cognitive.
So it turns out, as different as those two situations feel, it's the same underlying process.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Different areas of our cognitive architecture, but still the same. What you're pointing out, though, is something really, really fascinating. 2 points on that. Number one is that competence leads to confidence, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. So it's some of the new research now out on success. How do you get students to engage in more challenging problems? Well, there's a study on that. I mean, it came out in Ed Psych. I have it on my computer, but it's been within the last year and a half. They've looked at how do you get students to engage in more challenging problems or challenging tasks? Well, they checked out different ways of setting up learning sequences. And what they found was, look, if I want you to engage in this really hard task or problem, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with something that's difficult, but you've done it before and you've been good at it. Then I'm going to squeeze in something that you haven't done before that's difficult. And then I'm going to end with something you've done before that's difficult. It's called remembered success. And so that's one of the ways we can bring students along. We remember success. And so by embedding those moments, because competence leads to confidence, not the other way around. And so often in schools, at least in my classroom, I had that reversed for years. I gave the pep talk and then the challenging assignment. Not good. Give them something that's challenging, have them experience success, and then slide in the next. And the success from the first part, the competence, leads to confidence into the second part, and they're more likely to engage in the harder part.
Okay.
Now, that's part one of your question. Part two is the next area of research, and that is transfer. I have friends of mine who are coaches at the collegiate level as well as the high school level. And we talk about this research, and one of them says, I just don't get it. We practice this in practice every day. And then when it comes game time, they can't execute. That's a different monster. That's a whole different situation around effective practice and transfer. But you often see that show up as a struggle. Because they didn't bring their practice session into the practical setting that it's supposed to be used. That's a different monster, and it's a different way of thinking about recall and retrieval. And that could happen on the volleyball court. But what you said was, I know I could do this because I've done it before, so I can do it here. That's the competence leads to confidence. Versus I practice it, take them out on the volleyball court, and they act like they've never practiced in their lifetime. That's a
totally different.
And if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, it's when you have them do guided practice in your classroom, and then the next day on the entrance ticket, they act like they were never in the classroom the day before. That's maddening. Something else is going on there. That's a whole different area of research.
Because I'm thinking in my own life too. I remember I played basketball in high school, and I was practicing just like some different, different moves, like dribbling and stuff. And I just remember telling someone, like, I can do it myself. I can do it with my eyes closed. Yet in a game, it doesn't even come to my mind. And my friend Clint at the time just looked at me and was like, it's not in your arsenal. Like your brain knows how to, I guess, do it. But for some reason, you just have to force yourself to do it. And it worked for me. I looked at someone in a game and I thought, I'm going to do this one move in my head over and over. And I did it. But I don't know what really happened in my brain there. But it did transfer somehow eventually.
You got there. You got there. Well, listen, I struggled through this and it was great. No, it wasn't a struggle. I really enjoyed this conversation about struggle and difficulty and what the difference is and how to leverage both to enhance learning and to help students along the way. I'm really looking forward to when you guys complete all of your research and everything, because you're still in the middle of it. Yeah, that's what you said?
We've analyzed the first round of data and we're moving into the second, because the first round tells us the big picture and where to look. Now we're going to go look closer.
Yeah.
We've answered some of our initial questions. What is struggle? What happens? What do teachers think about? What do students think about? Those types of big questions. Now we're getting into some of the nitty gritty, and that is, what are the nuances of individuals when they struggle, and how can we break this down so that a classroom teacher, those of us that are on the study, all teach. What can I do now in my class on Monday to put this to use? And that's really what we're after. Is research that we can turn around and say, okay, that's what's happening there, versus research that is up in the clouds. We've got to bring productive struggle, unproductive struggle, failure, all those jargony words. We've got to make it so that we can use it to make sense of what's happening in our classrooms and have it change teachers' thinking and decision making. That's when we see the impact in classrooms.
Great. We need to write it down. When you're done with all of this, have you back. Like, seriously, like, have you back and go through it all, because, I mean, just the little bit that we've gotten so far, at least for me, has just opened up so much. And I know so many of our listeners are probably kind of, getting that same feeling of like, oh, how, like, I've seen this, I understand, I get it. Like,
I mean, classroom and personal, for sure.
For all of it. But
we'll have you back, Dr. Dude, episode 3.
Episode 3.
Got it.
No, but John, thank you for joining us
Thanks
today
for having me.
and sharing your new research and everything on struggling. Will, thanks for being here too.
Of course.
We appreciate it.
I set it up.
Yeah. You did. You made it happen, and we really appreciate that. I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us on this episode. I hope you're not struggling. I hope, though, that maybe there's a little challenge to help you grow. But this podcast, like I say all the time, is to help you guys as much as possible. So if you learned something in this episode, which I'm sure you did, because brand new cutting edge research, please share it with a colleague or a friend. We're not doing this just to become big, famous podcast people, but we want to give as many tools to as many educators as possible. We know it's a hard job. So thank you for joining us. Thanks again, John. Thanks, Will. And we'll see everybody on the next episode.
See ya.